ಆದಿತ್ಯ,
Yes, sir.
ಅಜಯ್, ಅಮಿತ್,
Yes.
ಅಂತಿಮ, ಅಪೂರ್ವ,
Present, sir.
ಅಶ್ವಿನಿ, ಬಿಂದು, ದಿವೇಶ್, ಗೌರೀಶ್,
Yes, sir.
ಗೌತಮಿ,
Present, sir.
ಗುಣಶೇಖರ್,
Present, sir.
ರೇಣಿ,
Present, sir.
ಸೂರ್ಯಪ್ರಕಾಶ್, ನಯನ, ನಜ್ಮಾ, ನಿಧಿ,
Present, sir.
ಪ್ರದೀಪ್, ಪ್ರದೀಪ್, ಪ್ರೀತಿ,
Sir.
ರಾಜೇಶ್, ರಾಜೇಶ್, ಸಹದೇವ್, ಸಾಕೇತ್,
Present, sir.
ಸಂತೋಷ್, ಸೀಮಾ,
Yes, sir.
ಸಿಂಚನಾ, ಸ್ಫೂರ್ತಿ,
Present, sir.
ಶಶಾಂಕ್, ವರ್ಷ, ಯಶಸ್ವಿನಿ,
Present, sir.
ಅಮೃತ,
Present, sir.
ಅನುಷ, ಅಪೂರ್ವ, ಸಿದ್ಧಾರ್ಥ್, ಚೇತನ,
Present, sir.
ಕಾವ್ಯ,
Present, sir.
Siddharth, present.
ಅಭಿಷೇಕ್,
Present, sir.
ಮನೀಶ್,
Present, sir.
ಸರ್ಫರಾಜ್, ಮುರುಗೇಶ್,
Present, sir.
ಮಣಿ, ಪರೇಶ್,
Present, sir.
ಪೂಜಾ,
Present, sir.
ಪ್ರಶಾಂತ್, ಪ್ರತಿಭಾ, ಪ್ರತೀಕ್, ಪ್ರತೀಕ್, ಸಾಧನಾ,
Present, sir.
ಶಶಾಂಕ್, ಶಶಾಂಕ್, ಶ್ರದ್ಧಾ,
Present, sir.
ಶ್ರೀಧರ್,
Present, sir. Sir, 68%, sir.
ತನುಜ್,
Present, sir.
ತೇಜಸ್ವಿನಿ,
Present, sir.
ಅಣಿ,
Present, sir.
ಆಶೀಶ್, ವಿದ್ಯಾರಾಣಿ, ವಿಶಾಲ್,
Present, sir.
Sir, Apurva, present, sir.
Sir, 68%, sir.
Sir, 31.
Yes, and 52, sir.
Sir, USN 53, sir.
Sir, USN 17 present, sir.
Sir, 29.
Anybody else? Okay.
68, sir.
Sir, 53, sir.
ಆಯ್ತು
31, sir.
ಆಯ್ತು.
Sir, 7 present, sir. Sir, USN 17.
ಯಾಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲೋಗಿದ್ರಿ? Okay, good morning. So, is there any questions? Are there particular questions? Any questions are there from your end to ask me regarding the course mobile applications? I hope you got the mail from my side regarding the lab internal, second lab internal test, second lab IA test, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? So follow the timetable. Remaining 7 questions will be from the Android lab. And also, if you are interested to come to the college offline for the practice of the lab, you can come in this week. You can come and you can practice the programs in the lab. Those who are facing difficulty of installation in their laptops and all, few students they come up here and they got it installed the Android Studio, and probably they might start working on practicing the programs. This time also you can if it is an online test, if you are interested, you can come with the consent letter of the parent to the campus, and you can involve in the, because the ultimately final examination is offline examination, lab examination. Suppose to get the experience of offline, you can come down to the college with the consent letter and RTP CR test report also along with that. Okay. If any questions, let me ask. Otherwise, I'll go with some little behind the syllabus. That is the language called as Kotlin, because nowadays the Android place, it is substituting the Android place, not completely. So around 30 to 35% of the applications nowadays, maybe you heard about the Ola, so Uber, Pinterest, some of the websites they are using, they are developed with the help of the Kotlin technology. So, if any questions are there? Silence means that either 100% understand or 100% not understood. Both the chances is there. You answered for the attendance, right? In the same way, you answer to my question. It is not targeted. It is targeted to all audience who is present here. Any questions from the course? So if not, I'll go with the discussion with Kotlin application. Here, Kotlin multi-platform mobile documents. To start with Kotlin programming, first understand what is Kotlin, why it is needed for you as a professional developer. Since Android Studio supports for single platform, like the platform which has an Android Studio and the operating system is Windows, and also Android supports for Linux platforms. But mobile platform like iOS or the BlackBerry, So that is not supported. To support with the other platforms also, you can make use of the several cross-platform operating systems. Among the one which is Kotlin. It is a modern programming language that makes developers happier. Why developer should be happier? A developer always struggling with problems to solve problems towards solving, providing the solution to the given problem. Many a times developers struggling, fighting against the problems only. But Kotlin made this appear to the developers. Why the reason is it supports multi-platform. You need not to develop the same code for different platform. Once if you write the code in Kotlin, it might works in multiple platforms. Again, it is an open source developed by JetBrains and open source. Some of the features is multi-platform, mobile, server side. You can make use of JVM Java Virtual Machine technology. Web front end, it uses Kotlin with JavaScript. Extend your projects to web, then Android, recommended by Google for building Android apps. Even you can use the Kotlin for developing the multi-platform mobile application, server-side web applications, web front end applications, and for Android also, exclusively for Android also. It also supports for the data science applications. Since it uses the Java programming, Java also meant for the data processing in some extent. Even it supports even Kotlin also supports the data science. One simple example, simplet version of Kotlin code is function main println hello world. Which type of the syntax this one? It is hybrid syntax. Yes. You can see, look into the syntax, simple code. It is looking like your C code. But in C, return type would be the basic types, derived types are the void type. Here, the return type is function. To define the function, fun is used. Here, main is the entry point again. Println is to print the content onto the line. So semicolon is avoided here. Opening and closing braces, as usual, it is used. When you run this example, it is going to get display the hello world. So you can edit the code, run the code. Editor is also available online. Suppose if you want to get few more examples, there is repositories available for the Kotlin language. Here you can learn Kotlin by example. So here play.kotlinlanguage.org. Through that you can learn the Kotlin content. Self-learning is possible because most of the concepts are inherent from several predecessor languages which already you learned from semester 1 to semester 4. Okay, so introduction part, how you can write package org.kotlin.play function is hello world. So when you run, it is going to get display here itself. Hello world. So the alternate version for the Kotlin is arguments array string. If multiple strings are passed through the command line prompt, it is going to display the content. Similarly, how you can declare the functions in Kotlin? Fun keyword, print message, message type is string. So unit. So this the several alternate ways, different way of declaring the Kotlin. So now, rather than going with the concepts of Kotlin, just it's an introduction part for our discussion. So Kotlin will come into existence not to replace the Java or not to replace the Android. Right? It provides the additional functionalities, flexibility for the developers. If you write the same code in Java, it requires around 3 to 4 lines. The same code can be written here in 1 or 2 lines. That's the power of the Kotlin again. Suppose if you go with the classes, how you declare the class, observe the class customer. Directly class customer. It will create a class customer with no. So class contact you can directly declare. Then you can make use those classes directly here by creating the calling the customer method and contact method. You can assign. So this is a simple way of declaring the class and using them in the code. If you go with inheritance, open class dog. Dog is allowed to access from other class. So that's why it is declared as open. Open is a modifier. Okay, just refer hands-on, go with the hands-on option. Build web application with React and Kotlin JS. So if time permits you can try out some of the applications which is there already with the Kotlin for your practice and understanding of the usage of Kotlin in the code. Okay. Then some of the events which is happening from the Kotlin group community group, then and then you can check in the kotlinlang.org website for webinar series. See also Kotlin plug released, IDM, deep learning with Kotlin, Jetpack, server-side development with Kotlin frameworks and libraries. Why Kotlin? Why Kotlin? It is modern, concise and safe programming language. Concise is nothing but in short form you can declare and use the functions and variables and also for class declaration. Safe. So you safe is it follows the nullable tags. Null is allowed. Then interoperable. You can import the relevant packages to work with the other set of languages. A productive way to write server-side application. Some small video, I think it is there. We can play this one. Yes.
So, welcome to the fourth day of the event, and specifically to my talk about server-side development with Kotlin. My goal today is just to give a brief overview of, using Kotlin for the server side, and I would like to share some of the information, give you some pointers to the resources or to the cases where Kotlin is used for server side.
So before going with server side, first let us understand what the basics of the Kotlin. Okay. Natural way to share code between mobile platform. You can even develop it for the Android as well as Apple platforms also. So the another alternate video, it's a short video.
Decided that okay, this seems to be the future of mobile development. So I'm either going to get on board right now or get left behind.
Originally from Boston, Massachusetts, but I live in California now.
I'm from Brazil.
Nigeria.
Italy, Sydney, Canton, China, Jamaica, Peru.
Now I'm living in Montreal.
First time I wrote code in Kotlin was in 2016, and it was love first sight. I've been using Kotlin for 3 years since I graduated from high school.
4 years. For about 2 years and a half.
Before even Google announced this support for Android. A few years, it's hard to remember when it started.
About 2.5 years.
Outside this, proximity to the language, just moves out of real.
Some of the developers, they were sharing the experience of usage of Kotlin here, and Kotlin support for users for Gradle, Gradle is introducing Kotlin. CRDA is an open source distributed lecture platform supported by major banks and built entirely in Kotlin. Evernote, Coursera, recently this application is written, which uses the partially written in Kotlin, Spring, Atlassian, some of the use key. Start using Kotlin today, build your first app using favorite IDE. Suppose if you are interested, you just go with the get started. We will learn this one.
Get right into it.
About the
I think
Kotlin bar JavaScript today and tomorrow. Just we will listen. It's around 40 minutes lecture.
My name is Sebastian Eigner. Thanks a lot for joining me today for my talk titled Kotlin.js today and tomorrow. It's awesome to have the opportunity to have everyone's attention this early in the day when everything is, when everyone's still eager to learn something new and everyone's still fresh. So I want to use this opportunity to spend the next 45-ish minutes talking about my favorite target for Kotlin, and that's JavaScript. Now, I hope that I'll be able to inspire you a bit, give you some insights that you might not have had before, and share some of the plans that the clever developers in the Kotlin.js team have. As I said before, I'm Sebastian. I work at JetBrains as a developer advocate, and I mainly focus around topics concerning Kotlin as well as Kotlin.js. And that's also kind of the reason why I'm so fired up to talk to all of you folks about something that I'm kind of perpetually excited about, how one of my favorite languages, Kotlin, works on one of the world's most prominent ecosystems, so JavaScript. So let's waste no time and get right into it. Because I think to understand the true potential of Kotlin.js, we need to know how it works, and especially how it works together with the things that already exist in the JavaScript world. Because the truth is, modern applications targeting JavaScript have come far from being just a simple script that gets embedded in a website. I'm talking tooling. There's bundlers that perform post-processing steps on your app. There's dependency managers like NPM or Yarn. And of course, there's a vast ecosystem of packages with over 1 million packages on NPM alone. Now, as Kotlin folks usually have most of our build and tooling configuration in one central point, which tends to be our Gradle config. And here's the great news with Kotlin.js, it doesn't have to be any different. Because through a tight integration with Gradle, we can actually manage our build, dependencies, and our packaging just like we would when targeting any other platform. And I really want to drive home the point that this elephant on the left here is our ally. Because thanks to the work of our developers, Gradle, together with the Kotlin.js plugin, provides a central point of configuration even for the most important JavaScript-specific topics. Now, whether it's some Webpack setting, NPM dependency, or even trivial things like making sure that there's an available Yarn installation on your machine, the Gradle plugin can take care of all of that. Now, thankfully, most of this magic actually happens behind the scenes without us having to think about it. I find this especially comforting when maybe you're not yet best friends with that elephant in the top right corner, or you just want to limit the amount of Gradle configuration you have to write. In general, you can apply the JS plugin very similarly to the Kotlin Multiplatform plugin. And let's actually talk about that for a second. Because we believe that Kotlin Multiplatform and its code sharing approach can help make the most of Kotlin JavaScript as well. You may have already suspected this, but just to make it explicit, as one of the possible targets for Kotlin Multiplatform project, you can of course use all the mechanisms for code sharing in Kotlin.js that are available for other targets as well. So common code, expect actual, the usual suspects. It's also one of the reasons why the configuration language you use to set up a Kotlin.js project is completely compatible with the one you would use in a multi-platform project. Now, these compatible DSLs should give you peace of mind when it comes to setting up a project in the first place, because if you decide to add another platform to a project you're starting with the JS plugin, it's as easy as switching it out for the multi-platform plugin and adding a new target. If you already have some common code between JVM and native, for example, it's as easy as adding another target to your multi-platform project, at least from a Gradle configuration point of view. Now, as Kotlin developers, our Gradle configuration is also the central point where we define our dependencies. There's no difference for Kotlin.js. Common Kotlin libraries, libraries that are made specifically for Kotlin.js, can simply be included using their coordinates, and even JavaScript dependencies from NPM can be pulled in by declaring them in a very similar fashion. So in this example, I'm just downloading a single function package from NPM that converts arbitrary text to camel case, just by adding one line to my configuration. Now in the background, the Gradle plugin then takes care of downloading and making this NPM package accessible from within our project without us actually having to do anything extra. At this point, all that's left for us to do is to tell the statically typed Kotlin world about the types of the function we just imported. So in this case, an external function that takes a string and returns a string. And now we actually have a function that we can call from Kotlin.js code and that resolves to native JavaScript code. And we are not done here, actually. The team is working actively on making this, currently 3-step process even smoother. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. We'll see more about that later. Now, options to configure and adjust our project as we kind of expand and build on it are very important. But honestly, we believe that it's equally important to reduce friction when you're just starting out. Because at the end of the day, we want to provide you with same defaults and a good place to start off from. You may already know that in IntelliJ IDEA, there are the Gradle wizards, but going forward, we actually also have the new experimental project wizard, which comes with a lot more templates and allows you to customize your project before you even write your first lines of code. Now, if you're already feeling antsy getting started with this, you can actually find the new project wizard already in the milestone release for Kotlin 1.4. In the same vein, we want to provide first-class tooling support for the Kotlin.js target. This begins with supporting Gradle functionality like continuous build execution. What does that mean for Kotlin.js? Well, the Gradle plugin actually works together with a development server provided by Webpack. So by passing in a flag to the Gradle process, we can actually cut down on iteration times by rebuilding and reloading our project whenever we save some new changes. So in this example, I started the application at the development server with the flag, and you can see that as soon as I changed some text in my code, a recompilation is triggered and the page reloads. We see our changes. But tooling, of course, doesn't just mean build tools, it means IDE support as well. And just like other Kotlin targets, when you have a project that includes or even solely targets Kotlin.js, you can get an experience that's very similar to the other platforms. You can debug your code directly inside the IDE. You can see sensible stack traces, have IntelliJ IDEA manage your source sets, and more. Now, one central point that makes a lot of that possible is source maps. Source maps generally allow tools to map the compiled JavaScript files that are generated by Kotlin.js back to the original Kotlin source code, which helps immensely with debugging and avoids having to wade through meters upon meters of minified JavaScript code. Because let's face it, if you would be debugging a JVM application, you would also not look directly into JVM bytecode. And as you can see, this is not actually just limited to IntelliJ IDEA. If you want to investigate an issue using the browser developer tools, for example, you can do so, but you still have Kotlin code right in front of your eyes. Ideally, if we want to catch issues earlier than the browser debugger though, which is why Kotlin.js provides integration with test runners for the JavaScript platform, like Karma, for example. And all important tasks around testing can actually be accessed without ever leaving IntelliJ IDEA. And again, thanks to the magic of source maps, even though they are run using a JS test framework, the stack traces will still point us to the erroneous parts of our application. If you're wondering how these test runners can be configured specifically again, the answer is once again a Gradle configuration. We really try to make it the central hub to configure the most important settings you would want to adjust in the project. Now, good tooling is a lovely goal to have, but I think we can all agree that it's only one piece of the puzzle. So for the next couple of minutes, I want to highlight some of the strengths that Kotlin.js has, in my opinion. I want to make it very explicit that I consider this list to be non-exhaustive, because honestly, I could probably talk for a few hours about all the things I enjoy about Kotlin.js. For now, you're going to have to make do with the selection I have here. You can, of course, catch me later, and I'll probably won't stop talking about the technology you have been warned in advance. Now, the first thing that I enjoy every time I start a Kotlin.js project is knowing that I'm not alone. A lot of the libraries we build at JetBrains around concurrency or networking or testing make use of common abstractions. So they have artifacts available that I can simply put in my build file with a line or two, and I get to use them. Let's maybe have a look at some prominent ones. Now at this point, I'd be really surprised if you didn't know about Kotlin kx.coroutines yet, so I'll even spare you a short-winded intro to the library. All you really need to know is that they work on JavaScript, and they actually have the potential to make your code targeting JS so much cleaner. Because the JavaScript world is kind of partially known for what's called callback hell, when you wrap every callback in another callback in another callback, and you end up with code that just slowly inches to the right side of your screen. And one of the strengths of coroutines actually fixes this issue. because they allow you to write code that looks sequential without giving up the power of recurrent execution. They're also a convenient way of preventing to have some set timeouts scattered across the application to schedule recurring tasks, for example. And by no means is Coroutines JavaScript agnostic, by the way. The library provides wrapper functions to await JavaScript promises, for example. So we end up with nice linear code, even when using promise-based browser APIs, which, by the way, are all available in a type-safe manner from Kotlin code. One small side note, though, as some of you might know, JavaScript by default is single-threaded, and the introduction of coroutines, of course, doesn't change that. So that means that coroutines work wonderfully when you have a lot of IO-bound tasks occurring at the same time, but they don't magically fix the problem of being able to utilize more CPU cores for computation-intensive tasks. Now, a library that maybe a couple fewer people know is Ktor clients. Now, Ktor is already pretty popular as a server-side framework to build APIs and connected applications in general. Now, what few people know is that for the Ktor server, there's also a counterpart on the client side. So whether you're trying to consume HTTP APIs or connect to a WebSocket, if you've worked with Ktor on the server before, you'll feel right at home with Ktor clients as well. And truth be told, if you haven't worked with Ktor before, you'll probably still feel right at home. I mean, calling an API endpoint that returns a string in a single line seems like a graspable API. And of course, in true Kotlin fashion, Ktor clients also use coroutines, so they integrate nicely. Another library that I've come to appreciate a lot, and that's also not Kotlin.js exclusive, but certainly available for Kotlin.js, is Kotlin Serialization. It's the pure Kotlin answer to the question, how do I turn my Kotlin object into a representation that I can send over the network? Now, the fact that Kotlin Serialization is available for Kotlin.js is highly useful because, especially in the front end, we tend to consume a lot of APIs, and being able to serialize and deserialize responses and requests and communicate with remote APIs in a type-safe manner is actually quite convenient. And once again, I just quickly want to share some of my plea about the brevity with which all of this happens. Because after including Kotlin serialization in the project, it's as easy as annotating a data class with the serializable annotation. And at that point, we can already turn our Kotlin object into a JSON string, for example, and a JSON string back into a Kotlin object. Now, the three fellows I talked about, coroutines, Ktor, and serialization, actually make a wonderful team. Because based on what we've just learned now, we can configure the Ktor client to use Kotlin serialization. We can provide a Kotlin data class as a serializable model. And then finally, we can access our API in a time-safe fashion, starting from our request client. And of course, the fanciest part about all three of those topics is that they aren't Kotlin.js specific, they aren't Kotlin JVM specific, they're truly multi-platform. Which means that the to-do data class you see here on the slide, it could serve as a common abstraction that could be used and serialized by a Ktor server in our project and deserialized by a Ktor client, all while maintaining type safety and avoiding any duplication in our model, or even having to rely on additional specification that's not written in Kotlin at all. This can be quite convenient, and honestly, the fact that I can't fit all these concepts on one slide and the text stays a readable size is, in my eyes, just so amazing and another testament to Kotlin's conciseness. And the folks building Kotlin coroutines continue to push the boundaries with functionality like multi-platform polymorphic serialization, which works especially well with sealed class hierarchies. Essentially, what it does, it allows you to transport objects that have different types, for example, through the same WebSocket, and properly reassign their type on the other side without having to have a strictly typed layer in your application. I personally think this is the most exciting feature of Kotlin serialization. And if you've heard any of my user group talks, you already know that I like to squeeze in this topic every now and then. So if you want to hear me ramble on about that more, just make me after the talk. Now, chances are, especially when you are working in an established project or team, that not your full front end of the application will be written in Kotlin.js. That's one of the reasons why we are paying increased attention to playing nice with code bases that already contain JavaScript or TypeScript code. For these situations, you would ideally want to make your common abstraction, so for example, your business logic, available as a library in Kotlin that can then be consumed by front-end developers using frameworks like React, Vue, or Angular, for example. Now, to make this a smooth experience and to integrate well with all your tooling, including stuff like autocomplete, linting, and everything else, we are currently working on providing TypeScript definitions for Kotlin code. You can already check out the milestone blog posts for Kotlin 1.4, where you can find some instructions on how you can actually try this functionality already. Now, it is exclusive to the new IR compiler backend, which we'll talk about in just a second. But I truly believe that one of the big strengths we will see Kotlin.js in the near future is exactly this approach, to write parts of your business logic in Kotlin and then consume this business logic from JavaScript. And I guarantee that once this feature is out in preview, we will provide learning materials around how you can build exactly such libraries yourself. From a usage perspective, the mechanism behind this is rather straightforward. If you want to export a top-level definition, like a class or a function, to the JavaScript world, you simply add the corresponding JS export annotation to it. When compiling, the IR compiler then makes sure that these symbols can be accessed from TypeScript and JavaScript. And all your tooling, such as autocomplete engines, linters, and type checkers, will be able to use this information. Other declarations that are not marked with the JS export annotation won't be exported to now. A few moments ago, so let's talk about that at least on a very high level. While it's currently still experimental, it's the clear path forward for Kotlin.js, and besides the TypeScript definition, the team has a bunch of other features in store that I hope will actually convince you that it's going to be an exciting time once we can make the full switch to this new compiler backend. It's going to be.
So for further details, if you would like to know about it, you just refer the kotlinlang.org website. It's an interesting one. Latest technology supports for mobile application development using Kotlin. It's interesting. You just refer this website. Here the online editor is available to work with that. You can hands-on also. Hands-on, you start building web application with React rather than web application. Suppose introduction to Kotlin, multi-platform, concurrency, see data storage, targeting iOS, and our interesting topic is iOS and Android with Kotlin multi-platform. So create your first multi-platform application using Kotlin. First, set up your environment for KMM development by installing the necessary tools on a suitable operating system. So first install the Android Studio, then file new project. In that new project, select KMM application. Select KMM application in the list of the project templates and click next. KMM application means Kotlin multi-platform mobile, means KMM stands for Kotlin multi-platform mobile. When click on next, provide the name of the application, So minimum SDK you can select it here. Then next, finish. As usual, there you can go with the project. Run your application. It will run in your Android emulator. Hello Android emulator. So if you run the same with iOS, it will runs because it supports a KMM support, multi-platform support. Then you start developing iOS. You just provide the configuration, Xcode project scheme, and execution target. You provide the details for iOS. Even you can provide the configure that with the execution target. So refer this self-explanatory is given in the kotlinlang.org. You just go through if you'd like to build an application for multi-platform support. Okay, lots of material is available. You just follow. Any doubts? This is about the beyond the curriculum, which I have discussed today about the Kotlin. Just it is an introduction part I have discussed here. If you are interested, you just continue with the this Kotlin. So as of now, the exams are nearing to you. So concentrate on the final examinations as well as the final third internal IA test. So all as per the instruction from the higher ups, you are required to switch on the camera while writing the answers in the internal test. Those who are switch offing the camera while writing the internal test, your answer scripts will not be evaluated. And those who are submitting late also, those scripts will not be evaluated. So be careful about the instructions given from the higher ups. Okay. And lab IA test, second lab IA test is 789. From a mobile application lab, remaining programs will be there. Either you can use Android Studio to show your output, or you can use the emulator to show your output, or you can use the MIT App Inventor also. Okay, as of now. Any clarification? I hope you understood. All the best for all your examinations, forthcoming exams, internal as well as external examination. Thank you.